Hey, what's going on today, guys? It's Kirk from LaneFlix Media. I wanted today to talk about Hot Fuzz from 2007, directed by Edgar Wright. It's one of my favorites. I saw this movie for the first time when I was like between the ages of 8 and 10. I honestly don't remember. The first time I saw it, I don't think my parents fully knew what it was. I think they had seen it but like fallen asleep by the end, and we're like, oh, it's a silly action movie, he'll like it. Because by the end it gets very different for the kind of movie that it starts as. It's one of those movies where not halfway through, but gradually it changes into a different type of film than it starts as. This movie became a running joke in my family of like every time my dad and I would want to watch something and my mom would be in protest, would be like, but Mom, I watched Hot Fuzz, so let me watch, So, yeah, ever since I was young, this has been a really, not important movie, but just a movie that I have a special place for, Just right off the bat, I don't want to get too deep into the plot or spoilers or anything like that. I'm just going to hit a few things I like before it gets really twisty. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about like the commentary and stuff like that. I'm not going to do like a deep dive today, but I am going to touch on a few things that I love about it. So stay tuned if you've seen it. If you have not seen it, please go watch Hot Fuzz. Honestly, I don't know where it would be streaming right now. I have it on Blu-ray. So I have most movies that I know I love on Blu-ray. Just if I get that feeling of wanting to watch it again, I don't need to have internet or need to be in a specific place. I'm honestly not sure where it is streaming, but if you have access to it, go watch it. A simple Google search typically will give you like the top few websites that it's on to stream. The first thing to note in Hot Fuzz is the style. The style of the quick cuts of the quirky characters that are introduced, and on top of it all, the British comedy. I mean, this thing is so British. It's so hilarious. I mean, it scares you and then it makes you laugh. And then sometimes it makes you laugh with what's scary. It's a very weird tone. It's almost Evil Dead, but more clever, I would say, because Evil Dead does it in a very in-your-face, aggressive way. And Hot Fuzz is like, here's this terrible thing happening in this noir story. Oh, by the way, here's a joke. And it just kind of, it's amazing. I love it because it doesn't curtail the end of the threat, because the threat still feels serious, of what's happening. But the jokes are always really, really funny. The sense of British comedy, though, and if you're familiar with like Fawlty Towers or Monty Python's Flying Circus or any of the Monty Python movies or any of the quirky British comedy stuff, Mr. Bean, stuff like that, then you get the feeling of British comedy in the DNA of this movie. And another thing I wanted to mention too, I mentioned noticing the style. The style as the film goes along becomes its own. It kind of, because the style entirely it's shot and edited like an action film, but it doesn't become that until later. It's kind of a noir movie up to a certain point. But so I can understand watching it and not getting it the first few minutes, but it's not over 2 hours. I think it's an hour 40 or something like that. So stick with it. It's a really good movie. I like that the bureaucracy of like the British Metropolitan Police Force is on full display here, because basically we have to understand what a slog it is and what a pain in the butt it is to get things done, especially this specific bureaucracy that Nick Angel, our protagonist, is dealing with. And I didn't notice this until this most recent time watching it. I mean, of course I noticed it, but I didn't make a note of it and kind of observe the drama of it. Juxtaposing Nick Angel's hero's heart with the darkness and the dreariness of the police force is a really great source of comedy and drama. And yeah, that's just really clever and nice to put that in there, that we do have a hero. Even though he is kind of a stickler, he is a little bit more uptight than I would say most people. He's still our good guy, and you get that from the beginning. Like, you like him, even though he is a little weird, he's still likable and he's funny. Yeah, this movie just kind of bleeds with setups and payoffs, and that's like something I love in movies, is when things are set up and then paid off later. And it's a basic storytelling element in movies that I think it's really easy, but it's easy if you know what you're doing. It's a skill you have to learn and learn by practicing and writing. A clever setup and payoff is not easy to do. I mean, there's basic setups and payoffs of comedy that are tropes nowadays, but I mean, anything, you set up when Nick Angel gets to the hotel he's staying at in Sanford, Gloucestershire, or whatever the place is called. This is a spoiler, just so you guys know. You see the swords that he fights one of the guys with at the end of the movie, like on a shield on the wall. So I thought that was kind of cool watching it with the commentary. You hear Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg talking about it. And yeah, they mentioned that. I was like, wow, I never noticed that. I've seen this movie 20 plus times. I've never noticed that. Oh yeah, the entire beginning, anything dialogue or action-wise, as far as Simon Pegg's character Nick Angel is concerned, is just setting up that he's kind of a stick up his butt, strict kind of person. It does a really good job of telling us who he is and kind of showing us who he is without being too like hitting you over the head with it. So there's a little show, I believe it's streaming on Netflix right now, called Black Books. It's an old school, early 2000s British comedy, I guess it could be considered a sitcom. There's an actor from that show who's a main character in that just plays a pair of twins in this movie. And it's hilarious. His name's Bill Bailey, the actor, and his characters are freaking hilarious in this. And I never noticed that the two twins that he plays, both are reading works by an author named Ian Banks, but I guess the twist of the joke or the punchline is that the second twin with the curlier hair, the drearier attitude, is reading Ian M. Banks, whereas the first one is just reading Ian Banks. So it's that weird British humor, I didn't fully get it. I'm not familiar with either of those authors, but it's just funny that they made that slight little difference, because that's what they do in the movie too. Oh yeah, so I thought this was really cool. Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright read through the big book of movie cliches by Roger Ebert to ensure that they included cliches and built their story with, common detective action movie cliches, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was weird, but funny that they kind of start the movie with a really common kind of plot. Oh, the big hotshots getting sent to the small town kind of thing. It's gonna be fish out of water type stuff, whatever. They make it into something new and something you haven't seen before, and something that's, I think, really clever and funny. I can't remember who said it, but someone said that you have to know the rules before you can break them. And so I think that's what they do with this movie. Is in the beginning they set it up proper, like a real, mainstream type movie, and then by the end they twist it, like a lot of modern stuff. There's a lot of subversive horror and action movies that have done the same kind of thing, and it's common with Tarantino as well. Another famous example being not Tarantino, but Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn, written by and starring Quentin Tarantino. Don't have that movie spoiled for you if you haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn either. That's a good movie. So I love the trash can gag where Nick Frost as Danny, I can't remember his last name, but Danny, the kind of like the chubbier buddy cop, he walks by this room and he gets this trash can like thrown at his head, and then they do it again later, and it's such a weird gag, but it's hilarious because it always, even when you know when it's coming, it's still funny to me. Like every time I see that, I laugh. There's a lot of visual gags in the movie, including the trash can gag, including there's a lot of stuff with when you're first introduced to the small town police squad. You see a lot of them have something going on, especially he's got glasses and he's kind of nerdy, and he's sitting in front of a paper like whiteboard kind of thing and he is standing like front and center, and right behind him you have this big bubble, and then it's like one of those diagrams. I don't remember what you call them, but it's one of those diagrams. There's a bunch of circles around his head, and each one of them says something really mean, like stupid or ugly or incompetent and stuff like that. And there's a lot of just different visual gags like that in the movie that continue to be funny even by the end. So, and yeah, watching the commentary with Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright, it really felt like they had a lot of fun making the movie, and which is not super common when you hear of, especially complex action movies like the end of this movie. You don't hear about it being fun very often, but they sounded like they had a really, really good time making it. So I just thought that was really cool, and it was nice to know that because I love this movie. So there's a 1973, I believe, film called The Wicker Man, and it's a very low-key horror movie based on, I believe, a novel. The original is starring Edward Woodward, who is the main Neighborhood Watch guy in this movie, who's kind of watching over all the monitors. And he's very conspiratory. He's very paranoid in this movie, which I think is a callback to The Wicker Man, when he is the one person who's like a normal person, and the whole island is kind of losing their minds to this cult that's run by Christopher Lee, who most of you will probably know as Count Dooku or as 1970s Dracula. It's, to me, it was definitely a callback because this movie has also similar themes of going to a small town that not a lot of people know about, and there being some town-wide conspiracy going on. So it was a cool little nod to that, and I just thought maybe it could be that constable that went back into society, and I believe he dies at the end of Wicker Man. It would be cool if this was like a parallel universe version of that constable, and he reintegrated into society but became insane with paranoia and started running the neighborhood watch of this small town in England. And then not the Nicolas Cage one, the good one. I love Nicolas Cage, but the Nick Cage Wicker Man is terrible. Oh yeah, one of the scenes that makes me laugh every single time I watch this movie is when Nick Angel and Danny are sitting in the car, kind of getting to know each other. They're both having a snack. They're sitting there talking, and Nick Angel is trying to teach Danny about police work and how, you know, you have to be able to pick out suspicious people, and you have to also be able to, like, know when to just be low-key about everything. They just go back and forth, and they talk about which guy or which lady on the street looks, you know, conspicuous and all this stuff. And there's just a lot of gags in that scene that are really, really funny. And yeah, I don't want to give any of the jokes away. It's just really super duper funny. The theater scene, whenever the two cops, our main guys, are asked to go to a like local rendition of Romeo and Juliet, they go there, and Danny is kind of blinded by this stupid rendition, like modern crappy rendition of a classic tale, and Nick Angel is just sitting there completely not buying it. Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, what are they doing? It just kind of adds to that layer of the kind of rising up out of Nick Angel that he suspects something, and that he's trying to figure out what's happening in the town. So. Oh yeah, watching the commentary, I realized that Edgar Wright purposefully put the cranberry juice shot as like a kind of menacing, very tight shot of the cranberry juice going into the glass. Was a foreshadowing of blood being spilled. So I liked that. I thought that was really cool. It was very Giallo of him, you know, with his mask and glove killer kind of thing going on. It was just a cool little thing to throw in there. So the sets and the camera work and the costumes really sell this as, like, if you took the comedy out, it could just be a classic kind of action movie, and it would hold up. I mean, it would be its own movie. It wouldn't be quite as good, I don't think, but it would still be a solid movie from beginning to end. So the first time we see our hero, Nick Angel, actually smile is when he and Danny are kind of breaking the ice and sitting together in a pub, and Angel corrects him about calling it a traffic accident. It was a traffic collision kind of thing. And then Danny does the whole, like, bloody eye trick, and it's just really funny to me because it's a sweet little moment of the two of them being the most themselves in front of each other, and then both kind of giving and becoming friends. You know, it's a beautiful process to see two people just enjoying each other and having a good time. So apparently there is a like 3-frame section of this movie where Timothy Dalton breaks the fourth wall. There's like an in-joke to Wright and Peg, and I'm sure Timothy Dalton. They're shooting, and it's right before, it's the same scene I'm talking about. It's right before Dalton, Mr. Skinner. I don't remember his first name, but yeah, Skinner, the guy who manages the supermarket. He toasts the two actors that are in the Shakespeare play, and as he's doing it, he like looks like that, like just for a second while he's talking at the camera, and it's not even that long. It's like a couple frames. But so they made a joke, and they're like, oh, he's breaking the fourth wall, you know, he's 007, he can do whatever he wants, kind of thing. So I thought that was funny. Oh, and it's really funny too, the way they kind of end their first like outing together, the two guys. It's just like a first date, which is kind of awkward. He's like, oh, this is me, and then they have the little like, oh, do you want to come up, and blah blah blah, and it's just really funny. It feels like a classic romance scene, but between these two like dude bros. And then there's a really cool editing sequence here where they go back and forth between the kind of shorter drunk merchant guy that they walk him home, and they edit between him and the two guys hanging out. The merchant guy gets hit on his head. I think his name's George Merchant, and he gets hit on his head and he falls into a chair, and as he's doing that they cut to Angel sitting down in his chair because he's drunk, so he kind of slumps down, and so they edit right there. It's a cut, it's a mid-motion cut, I guess is what you would call it, and it's just really interesting. And then they talk about movies, and Danny shows him his movie collection, and then he's like, it's about to go off, like right before he starts the movie, and as he pushes the button it cuts back to the merchant's house, and his house explodes because they show you in between. But it's just really cool editing. It's really sharp, and it's darkly funny. And yeah, the long shots of when all the cops kind of are together and they're first getting to the crime scene, kind of evaluating everything. Just these long takes of like going over everybody and kind of like slowly letting everybody play and do their joke, and it's perfect. Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg kind of talk about they wanted the cops in this to be kind of the other cops you always see in like Beverly Hills Cop, Lethal Weapon, stuff like that, where there's the other duo of cops, and then there's like sometimes there's more than one other duo, but there's at least usually one other duo that they juxtapose the main characters with. And this one is one of those where you're following the other guys that are, and I've already done the other guys, you're following the other guys that are not the heroes, that are not you're kind of following the two nerds of this group. You got the stickler and then the kind of chubby jokester guy, and that's who you got. Those are your action heroes, and by the end they really are. This is a movie that, regardless of what kind of movie you like, I think there's a little bit of everything. There's a little bit of horror, there's a little bit of bromance, there's a little bit of action, there's a little bit of just straight comedy. There's just some classic movie cliches that fit so well that you don't mind that they're there. For anyone that enjoys British comedies, I think this is definitely a movie you should see, and it's definitely a movie I would love to hear people's opinion on, because I could see other people not liking it as much because of how stylized it is, but I just love it so much. I'm blind to all the weird stuff in it. I love it. It is in my top 5 favorite movies. I tweeted about it recently, and yeah, it's great. So yeah, and I don't really want to get too much into it. It's I think I've talked enough about it, so if you haven't seen it and you watched the whole video, I'm sorry I spoiled some stuff, but there's plenty of other great stuff to see in it, so go check it out. If you guys could please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's any movies that you have requests for. I got a request for Spirited Away on the last video, so if you guys have anything, I'll do anything. I gotta find where to stream Spirited Away, but I'm doing that soon. Let me know how I'm doing, and yeah, I really appreciate the time you guys spend with me. And yeah, just send me any requests, and send me your opinions about the stuff I talk about, please. I hope you guys have a great day today.